Hi everyone, in this video I want to talk about multiplayer in augmented reality, mixed reality. Here in the video you can actually see a scene from the game Area's Legacy. Now this augmented reality game can be played single player. I can play it alone, I played it alone here, or you can play it locally with a friend. Now since Apple released ARKit2 that supports local multiplayer, multi-user experiences. We can see that more and more developers are developing games. Some of them are only multiplayer games. Some of them are designed as both single player and local multiplayer as well. Now imagine wanting to play with someone and you don't have anyone to play with, and you already know you're playing multiplayer games all the time, but you do it online, right? With your computer, with your tablet, with your phone. We play many multiplayer games, but in those games, most of them we play them online with other players. Now the cool thing about it that there's matchmaking, and we don't need to do anything. We can just press button and then we're gonna find ourselves playing with other players from all around the world. And it's very easy, and it's really fun to play with other players. I mean, I personally prefer, in general, multiplayer games than playing alone, because I like the social activity, doing things with friends, working toward a goal, finishing missions together, hard missions. It's really fun. I do it all the time when I play on the PS4, when I play mobile games. I really love multiplayer games. Now, if you think about augmented reality or about playing games or any type of experience, it doesn't have to be a game, but I'll be speaking about gaming in this video, so I can give you some really interesting examples that you're probably already familiar with, and it will be easy for you to associate with what I said. So it's all about being in a specific location and interacting with things around you. Now, these things can be, of course, something completely virtual, like you see here. It doesn't matter where I play, I can see the same things, like in the wall, and all these items are all virtual. Or it can be something that is tied to something physical. In this case, when you use the app or play a game, you need to be in a specific location in order to use the app. Some games, like Pokemon Go, for example, requires the player to walk outside and get to specific locations. Now imagine using in AR glasses, for example. You go outside and there is a game that takes place in a certain location. This is a multiplayer game where many players come, and you can invite your friends, and you're gonna fight dragons in the sky. And this raid event is going to happen, I don't know, in a big park, and many people are going to come there and play together. Now, in order to support multiplayer, and not just playing with other people, but also allow you to take part in an activity without needing to be in a specific location with other players, how do you do this? All right, so there are several ways to do this. First of all, the most basic thing is just make local multiplayer games where players need to be at the same location in order to play the game. So this is locally. Now, the second option is isolated. It's something that you have, for example, one player with the AR glasses being in a place playing a specific game, for example, and the other player is using another device with non-AR device, like for example a VR, played in VR or on a tablet or a mobile phone. It takes part of the experience, but in a different way. For example, let's imagine people fighting, playing an FPS game outside, together, all local with their AR glasses. And that player provides them support, just control the plane. But this player is at home, sitting on the couch, using a tablet. And what it does, it just control the plane, and the people in the playing outdoors can actually see the plane and the player. They can actually, for example, if it's an FPS game, just shoot the player down, shoot the plane down. And that player just control the plane, like a standard game. It has probably kind of a graphical user interface. We can actually see what the other players are doing. The third option is replication. This means that, for example, if it's a game, the two players which reside in different locations and play with, for example, an AR game with a mobile phone, they see the same game, the same game session. They exist the same game session. For example, if one player, the first player, just open a drawer, the other player is going to see it. And with this type of experience, you're probably going to see maybe like a ghosting avatar that's showing what the other player is doing. For example, if the player interacts with the drawer, you might see some hands, so you can see that the second player which you are playing with is actually doing something. You can even see if you just moving around the room, you can actually see maybe the legs or footprints on the floor, so you know where he is. So in this particular game above, Ares Legacy, we can imagine another player maybe searching for clues on the right side, the other player searching for clues on the left side. And if a player picks up an item, this item is not available for the second player. Maybe they can exchange items. If I just try to unlock this thing, the other player can actually interrupt me. But if I'm doing this thing, the other player can search other clues around the room, and we can just do it together. However, Ares Legacy supports local multiplayer. This means that the other player must be in the same location where you are in order for both of you to have the same experience, be in the same gameplay session. Another option, which is related also to the game design itself, is just extending the AR experience. So if it's a game, this means that for example, both players using mobile AR, each one residing in a different location, maybe in a different country, and each player is doing a separated sub-objective that counted for the same main objective, right? This means that, for example, you have a mission to do in your place, right? You're gonna fight some zombies in this area. And in order to complete the mission, the other player needs to do something over there, like maybe find the key or something. This is his objective. And then when both of you complete the objectives, you finish the mission. So you can think about something like having two players. First player, sees a door, and the other player needs to search a key in his area, and he's playing in another place, maybe in another country. Maybe you need to find different things and then exchange items or exchange knowledge. Maybe find clues here, the other player find another clue, and then it can combine together. So this way you create a dependency, which actually can make the game more exciting to play for both players. Another option is kind of embodied, integrated, personified. It's kind of spectating through the user's point of view, even with touch, shared touch, with the ability to interact with the activity using a kind of user interface that provides the same or partial interaction, which added or overrides, controlled, what the on-location user is doing. You can think of it, for example, imagine a player with AR glasses playing again somewhere, doing something, and you can actually see through the eyes, like being in a stream kind of, but still having controls, so you can control the game, kind of a shared play experience, but without you actually being there. Okay, this is another option which both players can play together. You can do something that the other player can take control, and then the first user can't do anything, or just do something together, some kind of an experience together, which the first player can do one thing, and the other player can do another thing, but you actually play this cooperatively together. Now, what you decide which approach to take to the multi-user experience, whether it's cooperatively or competitively, you need to do it, to understand this ahead of time, because this is something that's going to change your game design almost completely. Depends on the type of game that you are developing or era experience. So imagine you are playing a standard game, all right, a game of cards, for example. Let me bring up a video so I can explain it better. This is PD, an augmented reality card game, But imagine you want to make this game in a multiplayer game. You have several options, right? You can do this isolated. For example, you can make this game support different types of devices, so or make the game standard a mobile game or an AR game, and both players can play the same game together, and this enable the same gameplay session to be played maybe in VR, maybe just standard mobile, maybe just in 2D, not even 3D, but still both players will be in the same game session. They see the same thing. Another option is just to replicate the game. We mean transfer the same gameplay, augmented reality gameplay experience for both users, which can be just one player in country A, one player in country B, and they're just seeing the same experience. They are playing on a table, for example, and they see the same game. And for example, if I move a card, the other player sees that I move a card. It's like a standard multiplayer, but in augmented reality. And this also can be personified, where just see what you see, and I can actually, take action, just remove a card and put it there instead of you. Think of it like two minds being in one body, actually your body, but my mind is actually with you there in the same place. This is Yara's legacy, right? It supports local multiplayer, but how can we make this game an online multiplayer? Right? We have several options to do this. The first thing is, personified. I can just be in your head, right? I can see what you see and I can help you. I can give you maybe just, with voice, I can tell you what to do. I can maybe tap on something if I see something and this action is going to register. Again, but I'm relying on seeing what you see, because if you move your side to the left, I'm going to see what you see exactly. If you move to the right, that's what I'm going to see. Another option is just to replicate the experience. Because, for example, if you put this is just one size game. So if you place it in your house and I place it in my house, these are the same things. The only thing that we need to do is just synchronize between the two gameplay sessions, so it will actually be a one session. So, for example, if I open something, for example, I just open this mailbox, you're gonna see it open as well, because we're doing the same things, right? So if I solve something, you solved it as well. Like we're playing together. If I find something, if I just, for example, solve this puzzle, if I use an item, it will be used. You can't use it because I already use it. We just being at the same place. Maybe we can't even share items. If I took an item, for example, in my inventory, you won't see it. So I maybe need to ask you, please, can you give me please that item? I think I need to do something with it. And if I solve the something, it's solved for both of us. Yeah, you can also extend the experience. This means that each player is going to see different types of objectives, but they are isolated for each one. So if I solve something and you solve something, this means that in general that each player has its own objective in the game, but they are taking place in the same room. For example, this is the same room. I have my own objectives, you have yours. And then if you finish, both of us, we finish it, we move on, we continue. Maybe you can see, for example, that this is the second player's objective and I can do this, but you need to do this. And then, the same thing, vice versa. This is another game called Twinkle Architect. I really love this game and it supports local multiplayer. But how can we make this game work as a multiplayer? Just I want to say something, that most of the games that I show you are designed for local multiplayer. Yeah, of course you can design the games from the ground up to support different types of multi-user experiences, and they will be completely different than what you see here. These games are designed for local multiplayer, but again, for the other things I'm going to give you some examples. But here I just want to bring some examples for real games that already developed, and let's see how we can make them with online multiplayer. Here what you can do, of course, is just replicate the experience, and if one player is doing in his place something, it will immediately affect what the other player sees. The other option is just to make it embodied, so I can actually interact, depends on, just take control, but I still see what you see, right? So, and the other option is, just create an isolated experience where I'm using my device. Maybe it's in VR, maybe it's just the game is in a 3D, but in a standard mobile game, not in augmented reality, and then we can play together. Now, this particular game can be easily replicated and be played in standard 3D, not in augmented reality, because you just play on a surface, and of course you can just make it virtual, and instead of just seeing the game played in the real world, you're just going to see it played on a virtual surface. Now, this is Catapult AR in ARKit 2 local multiplayer game, can be played alone, but it's a local multiplayer game. This is really cool to play against a friend locally. And if you want to change it into online multiplayer game, of course you can make it so the other player will play it, for example, in virtual reality. Yeah, it's isolated, everybody with its own device. We can replicate the experience, so I get the same thing. If, for example, I'm playing in another park far away from you, you're going to see the same thing. I'm just going to see, for example, if a certain block is dropped, it will be the same thing. I'm going to see the same thing because this is the same gameplay session. Now, keep in mind that you can create both things. I mean, of course, you can use local multiplayer game and use another option where you allow users to actually find players online. This way, if the game is really fun to play in local multiplayer game, just head it. But what if the other player can't find other players to play with? We need to do something about it. So you can serve this as another type of game mode and allowing players to search for other players to play from all around the world. And this can also really help your app in terms of retention, because if I want to play this game and it's really fun to play against other players and I won't find any other player to play with locally, I probably won't play the game or maybe uninstall it. This way you provide alternative game modes for players in order to continue using the game and play it. Just think about it. Now, I'm not necessarily saying that if you play it online it's going to be the same thing. Probably not, for some games. But you're just giving users another option to play against other people. Instead, you can of course just do it, let them play against an AI. But again, I'm just talking about right now about multi-user experiences. So, I mean, games that people will want to play against real players, maybe competitive games, And again, I personally prefer playing in real players and not against any AI. But of course, you can also have this option as well if you like. Now, the same thing with this game, for example, a fighting game. Imagine you need to fight against another player, right? It's really fun playing locally, but you can also allow an online multiplayer game because both players will share the same gameplay session, but just one player is going to be, in another place. Each one is going to be in his own place, and then we're going to play together, and that's it. Just another game mode, which you actually don't rely on local multiplayer in order to allow users to play against other players. Now, it's important to note that these examples are not great, right? The thing is that you need to think about those methods that I mentioned, and then it allows you to, get some unique ideas and design games that can work really well with augmented reality. Now, this game can be used indoors or outdoors, but just imagine AR glasses and people playing outside. There's so many unique experiences that haven't been discovered yet. But there's another thing that I wanted to talk about. So, imagine, all right, and this is important, right? And I'm going to explain to you why it's important. I'm talking about the isolated one, why it's important. So, imagine, and I'm going to take a game, for example, a first-person shooter mixed reality game playing outdoors with the Magic Leap On, all right? Right, there is an event, a big event, raid event, and many players are just gathering around. There are attack of dragons in the sky, and there are some robots just climbing on buildings, and it's just kind of a really big raid with lots of enemies, and you are like 20, 30 people just together, fighting against it in order to complete the raid. But imagine, your best friend Gabby is at home. She can't play, but you really wanted to play with her. She is sick, so she can't come. Or for example, there are other players, other of your friends that can come because they have a limited amount of time to play. Maybe they're physically unable to do so. For it doesn't matter, for any reason they just can't attend this event. You can really benefit from making the game available for different type of platforms and technologies. For example, if it's in augmented reality games for the Magic Leap 1, maybe the Magic Leap 2, play outdoors, you can have another player take a part using his tablet. For example, we mentioned the raid, right? And I'm the second player, I'm sick, I'm at home, I can't come. What a developer can do is provide me the option to become a support, a support entity in the game. This means that maybe I can control a plane, a 3D plane that flies and provides support for the other players who are physically there playing the raid. And the other players who are in that physical location can actually see my plane, can see me actually controlling it, maybe even seeing kind of a funny avatar, and can just do some gestures. Hi guys, hello. And I can just shoot down from above and provide support. But I control that plane from my tablet, not in augmented reality, just from my tablet, using some kind of a graphical user interface that fits this type of gameplay mechanic. Now this can be really fun, and it can also extend the player base because some players who can't, can physically take part of a particular experience can take part of it, and if their friends are playing, they can feel they're contributing, to something, and they can feel really excited when they finish an event together. So it's really a good thing to enable this type of cross devices, cross platforms, cross technologies experiences. Now there are some things that are not new, and we also saw it in virtual reality. For example, two players playing a game, one uses the headset, and the other player maybe is a friend playing from his house, or maybe another player that comes locally, and the second player plays from a desktop. And there are different types of roles for each one. For example, the one with the virtual reality can play as an observer, the other one controls a little character that needs to move from point A to point B, and he can actually sees the place in a first-person perspective. The observer needs to guide him. Now, why it was good for VR? Because not everybody, especially when the first VR headset came, could afford buying a VR headset, and a computer. So these types of game allow people who have a virtual reality headset to play with their friends. Each one has its own role, and if they play locally, they can actually switch. So this was a really good option to allow people to, allow developers to extend the player base, but just creating a role which the other player can use by using a desktop computer instead of a virtual reality headset. By the way, when I say desktop computer, I actually mean just playing with the standard screen, compared to the other player who just play with a VR headset on. So again, this is these ideas related to multi-user experiences in augmented reality, mixed reality. This is just a draft, something that I wanted to talk about, and I'll extend upon it later on. But yeah, it's important because I love multiplayer games, and I do find myself, not being able to play with another player, and some games that I really would have wanted to be able to play with other players, but I don't have the option for that. So this is it. If you want to hear more about it, I will make another video, probably more polished, and I will publish it soon. So make sure you subscribe to my channel and press that bell button so you get notified when I release a new video. There are many things related to multiplayer in augmented reality and mixed reality, especially when playing games outdoors or any type of AR experience. By the way, it's not just games. I just use a game for explaining the ideas that I want to talk about. And I will talk about it in the second video, and I'll try to make things clearer, more accurate, and we can open a discussion about it and see maybe you can come up with different type of ideas that allow developers to become even more creative when those devices, maybe AR glasses, come out, and we can use them outdoors, so we can create really compelling mixed reality experiences, multi-user mixed reality experiences that can be played, you know, not just locally, but also combine some online multiplayer to make them more exciting to play. So this is it. Until next time, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I see you very, very soon. Bye bye.